Okay, so we are live here with Charlie, MrCharlieSilva, who is one of our most active, most loyal members. Hello, Charlie. How are you doing?
What's up, host? Yeah, how you doing, dude?
Thanks for rescheduling. We were supposed to do this on Monday, but I did have internet issues. That was real, and
Yes.
we had to move it to a different time. And so we're doing a lesson today with Charlie because he redeemed the one-on-one lesson using 100,000 dojo gold. So yeah, hopefully everyone should know Charlie if you have ever watched the stream around, I guess, around this time, morning time. Yeah, and
I'm there in my afternoons as well, which is where basically David's going to bed. Usually I'm also there because it's my lunch.
oh yeah, sometimes I see you at night. That's right. Yeah, that's cool.
Cool beans, it's okay.
Um, yeah, so Charlie, you play a lot of Rapid. I don't think you've played any like tournament over the board chess. Is that right? But that is
I
your.
only played one person in my whole life over the board, but we play like every single day because he's a fellow music teacher at my school. He's 67. He's the one that got me into chess and taught me not last October, the October before. And then in May is when I basically went online, and it was watching Bruce do branch to branch, and it was my first chess stream I followed because
Oh,
before
wow.
that it was just one drum stream.
I can't believe we got you
And,
from branch to branch of all the shows.
well, I'm an educator, and I was like, hey, this seems like he's an educator, not just a good chess person.
Uh-huh.
Because from knowing music and things, I think it's different to have the skill, but it's another thing to be able to effectively teach it to somebody else. There's a lot of people that can do but can't teach. There's actually people that can teach really well but actually have trouble doing it themselves. Like, I don't think it's so simple. It's kind of complex.
Yeah, definitely not. No, I often struggle with that, like imposter syndrome. I often wonder, like, am I really teaching people, or am I just like, do I just play well and then rationalize later why I made good moves? Like, so it's hard. But we were actually just talking about, so we talked a little bit on Monday, because before we were supposed to have the lesson, I just wanted to go through some of your games and get an idea for like um, what you're doing. And I don't think I said much then, but one thing I said to you was that you just need to make sure you're taking more of your time. Because like from the games before, I saw that you were like generally playing well, but occasionally would like blunder. And whenever you did blunder, like that move would always come really quickly, even though you might have like 10 minutes on your clock or 12 minutes or whatever. And so I just felt like, okay, well, if you just learn to like take your time a little bit more and decrease your blunders even a little bit, like your score will already go up because you won't be losing as many games due to these like one or two move mistakes. Um, and so it sounds like you played the tournament today and actually like managed to start using some of your time, right?
Yeah, it's been helpful because I've been practicing a lot with Scotty, and Scotty takes forever.
Good.
But then he ends up forking you with a knight. And I've been practicing with Steve North, and he likes to do 30-minute games. And then so that's helping me slow down just because I'm playing with people that are trying to use their time as well.
Hmm.
So I feel like sometimes the movement of the pieces kind of sound like a metronome, and it's like I get caught up in the rhythm of the pieces moving.
So when your
So I
opponent is
have to,
playing quickly, you feel like you gotta also like match
yeah, it's
them.
like I'm gonna miss a downbeat if I don't like keep up to them.
Yeah, it's a tough instinct. For-
It's fine. I just literally have to. I notice if I keep my hand on the trackpad,
Mhm.
it makes me want to go faster too. So I have to like literally like play on my chin, pretend it's a board, like I'm playing over the board with the guy that taught me.
Yeah,
And then he likes to take a long time as well. So it helps me slow down because as soon as I feel like it's a kind of a video game,
right.
then it makes me want to go fast because usually in video games speed counts.
Yeah,
Or ice hockey, which I play, it's not necessarily about like speed matters. They might not catch it if you do it fast. And in chess, it's like, no, it's not like that. It's more about a grander scheme of things, not just like this small little play.
yeah, no, absolutely. And we should also say like you're playing a lot of like rapid chess, which is pretty fast compared to like, most tournaments. And like already in rapid chess, it does feel like, you can't spend your time on every move. You can't take like a couple minutes on every move. You'll run low very quickly. So you do need to have some sort of tempo, much less so than in Blitz, much more so in Blitz and Bullet. But in Rapid, you also need to like develop the ability to, let's say, play a normal move every 10 to 15 seconds. You know, a move that improves your position, doesn't blunder anything, like a good, decent move. So Rapid is already kind of fast, but just taking your time in Rapid, I think, is already something that's kind of difficult for a lot of players. So that, I think, is just kind of the first step. Have you heard the classic Soviet school advice for when a student is playing too quickly?
It's probably like hit them in the head or with a ruler in their hands.
So that's not really advice, but no, they're they're told to sit on their hands. And that's a real thing. I bring it up actually quite a bit. Like when I was a kid, I was told to sit on my hands because it happens in over the board play as well. You have 30 minutes on your clock. Your opponent makes like the first opening moves quickly. You also respond quickly. Oops, you blundered a pawn or you blundered a piece, and that's it. Like game's over. And then like afterwards, like what's the coach supposed to tell you? So,
I I understand where it's coming from, but the PTSD of my childhood of being a student and now being an educator, it's like, no, don't tell them to sit on their hands. They're just a drummer, or they're just a musician. They just gotta learn like do something else. They don't need to sit on them, but give them something to do with their hands so they're not trying to go fast. But they don't need to like sit on them.
Right. Well, that, I mean, yeah, it could be a separate issue. I'm not sure, but it definitely worked for me because when you're physically sitting on your hands, your body like it doesn't let you react quickly, so it forces your brain to actually think about what you're doing, and so you're not gonna like. So it basically means there's a little bit more resistance between you and you making a move, and that little bit of resistance will hopefully catch you from making some blunders. Because you mentioned to me the other day, you have many moments where as soon as you make your move, you realize why it's a blunder even before your opponent does anything.
Yeah, as soon as I got to like literally see my piece in the square I moved, that I realized sugar honey iced tea. I shouldn't have gone there.
And that's very, very typical. Some players might call that like a cold shower moment, where you're just like, oh, like it's like you awake and you come back to reality and you see what's actually going on the board, or like what's attacking what, and you're like, oh no, what did I? That's very common. It's very common. I've done it all the time. Even like grandmasters will still have that kind of moment today because everyone loses focus from time to time, and I think stronger players develop, let's say, I don't know, the skill or ability to remain focused for longer, and focused, and I want to say like present, because I think it's actually when you get lost in the woods, that's when you blunder actually, because you're like calculating some foggy variation that is never going to happen, and then it's like you're kind of missing the forest from the trees.
You just quote Marilyn Manson
Did he say that?
in the Beautiful People song. Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought that was
You were adopted in high school costume.
isn't that a very common phrase, forest from the trees? No?
Yeah, I know. I'm just giving you crap.
Okay. So yeah,
No,
actually,
I'm trying to.
yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just yes, I'm still here. Hold on, live chess wants to know I exist. I'm trying to just realize that like if I play time control, that makes me feel like I'm sitting with a friend, and there really isn't like no one's gonna flag, and that I can just be comfortable thinking and not feeling an impulse of, oh, I'm gonna flag. They're gonna dirty flag me. They're gonna try to do something cheap. Like I just feel more comfortable, but I also don't want to sit for like hours and hours yet, unless we have like beverages or something.
Yeah, you got to build up to it. You definitely have to, yeah, like my first over the board games were like G30, like 30 minutes per side. It didn't last forever. You know, I had like a little snack, maybe some water when I was a kid. And now, yeah, for long time control games, yeah, you're going to want like a coffee or a tea or something. I mean, it's just...
Have you played chess on Facebook? I like what they do. 1 minute a turn. Every turn you get up to 1 minute to think. But imagine if they did it so you get like everybody gets 10 minutes every move to think or something like that, and you could choose to use it or not.
That would take forever.
It seems cool.
Oh, 10 minutes. I mean, it's okay. It's just that some players would take their time and some wouldn't. I don't think they would get along.
Okay.
So
Chess people always get along too, so.
yeah, of course. So actually, so we were just talking about something before this stream in terms of like, yeah, not listening to advice, and I feel like it's so true because I mean, like I remember growing up when I was a younger player and much lower rated, like just how often I would blunder something because I was just moving too fast. And I remember seeing, like hundreds, thousands of games that would just end in a second because someone moved too quickly and blundered something that they shouldn't have. Missed a tactic that they would have seen a million times, or literally just put their piece on a bad square, or hung mate, or forgot that their piece was hanging. There's so many possible, like, so many different types of one move blunders that actually just end the game. And we all know that these are a thing, and we all know that, like, blunders, like, they cost you the full game immediately. If you make a small positional mistake, you can come back from that. The opponent is not necessarily going to capitalize on that if you make some subtle mistake. But if you make like an egregious blunder, most players are going to spot it, and then you have no chance to get back into it, into the game, right? It's just the game is over. So we end up losing a lot of points to just like these one or two move blunders. I think that's why coaches say like, work on tactics, focus on tactics. My worst advice, just to tactics. It's because like we know how many of these games are just decided by like one or two move tricks, and if you're just slightly on top of it, slightly on it, like you can score a lot of points. But my feeling is that it's not just the tactical ability, it's also the focus. Like you can solve all the tactics in the world, but if you're just like moving instantly in your games, you're not going to have any time to kind of like think and figure stuff out. So it's really like big part of it is just learning to like just slow down and learning to appreciate different options.
I remember I asked David that, kind of a question similar to that when I took his advice, watched the new video, and I got to 1200. And then I was like, okay, so I can do puzzles, but how do I get in the position to actually do the puzzle and know that the puzzle's there? And then he shared with me the tactics video 1 and 2 that he had, and then it helped me get to the 1300 plus or minus growing up and down from that area. So I think it definitely helps is knowing when to do it and when not to do it. But like, I guess the hardest thing, like I said, with puzzles is the tactics there, but how do you get in those positions is the challenge.
Well, yeah, hopefully we can help with that a little bit. Well, let's take a look at some of your games. I'll just start with the first one. I'll load it in.
I love
So that was against Abu, is that right?
I believe so.
Okay, cool.
The first game's the only game I'm like not ashamed, but I played trash was the fourth one. The third one against Morphe-Fan Nargate was fun, really fun. And then the second game was fun because I won, and I played pretty tight. But they were all, I was trying to use my clock and do what you said from our talk just a little bit on Zoom when Comcast upload speed messed up. Or you just wanted to hang out with mine or one of the other.
No, it was Comcast, that's right. All right. Well, yeah. Hopefully, I'm sure we'll find some interesting things in these games. I haven't seen these. I remember a few of my notes based on your earlier games, and I'll be curious to see how they line up with these games. Okay.
Sure.
So in this first one, you're playing white, and all right, we play
Grand Prix is what I'm thinking.
Grand Prix. Okay, perfectly fine.
It's kind of a newish opening I did recommend by Scotty and I liked it because I saw that it looks like the king's pawn structure. The king side is similar to the king's gambit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also doing. So I figured it would be a good transfer of skills and concepts. I don't know if it's right, but it was my mind frame.
I would say it's in like the same spirit as the King's Gambit. It's pretty aggressive, and you're always playing for the king side attack. But let's just say a lot of the ideas will be different, like the plans and the typical tactics.
Okay.
Some will match up. You're playing against the f7 square, and like you're playing for the f file. So like that is very similar to King's Gambit. So the play is similar, but there are definitely some nuances. Okay, I like a4.
Yeah, I didn't want them to attack my bishop. It was the word that I can't say. I'm not that smart, but it's a prophylactic thing, I think.
Yeah, that's right. You give your bishop.
I didn't want the pawn to come to b5.
No,
Um,
absolutely right. I
'Cause I
think
didn't want to lose.
it's good. Hmm.
Oh, I didn't want to move my bishop all around the world.
Right. So d3 castles
I'm gonna mess up soon. I can feel
and
it.
e5. Yeah. So takes knight g4. Let's just see what happens here. Bishop f4, and black takes this pawn. And let's see.
I think I was thinking that I miscalculated, and if I just keep trading, I'm gonna lose more minor pieces or get behind or something. I like second guess myself.
Yeah, well, let's see what happens here. So after bishop f4, black takes the pawn. And right, if you take this one, black takes. So that's a trade. And then if you trade again, we end up in this position. Right. And so black still keeps the extra pawn that they picked up on e5.
Yeah, so I'm behind.
So we're down a pawn. Yeah, so how did that happen? Let me ask you, how did that happen?
Because I probably shouldn't have pushed to e5.
Right, exactly.
But I don't know what else I could have done. This is like, I feel like I lose my games, is openings, remembering basic systems from experience. It's pretty easy to me. It's like knowing scales or stuff in music, but it's like knowing to identify the very first tactic that happens, I feel like in my tier can make or break a game.
Yeah, no, a lot of times, yeah, the tactics will just immediately decide. So we'll talk about what to do in this position. There's like very specific plan for white, and then once I show you, I think it'll become like your favorite idea ever.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that. I do want to acknowledge chat. I am aware of your existence, but for these lessons, I like to focus. I mean, we like to focus on the student, and then if chat has questions, I'm happy to address.
My whole life, I wanted to be special, and now I am.
Yeah, no, usually chat is fine. I mean, they just talk amongst themselves.
I know from like being in this a little position, like studying this position a little with Scotty and stuff, that you can do f5, but I just wasn't sure if it worked when I saw that like they could take eventually with the bishop, and then I have nothing to take back. So I didn't feel comfortable doing it.
Right. So yeah, this is like a thematic idea to play f5, where the point is to kind of open up white's rook and open up this bishop. I think it is a little bit too early here, so okay. I'll tell you the move you should do, and then kind of the plan, and we'll take a look at that. So first, just want to finish up on e5. So the reason that this one is probably not good is just because this pawn ends up overextended. Like after knight g4, we went from black attacking this pawn with just one piece, which is not that big of a deal, you can defend that pawn easily, to all of a sudden now 3 pieces are attacking this pawn, and the queen can even easily come in. So this would maybe be a good time to talk about like what is a weakness. Maybe you could first start like defining like what to you is what defines a pawn weakness. Like what is a weak pawn?
I would say a weak pawn is one with no pawns connected to it in a link or a chain, or one that's like, or a pawn that isn't defended or barely defended, just like open to tactics.
Okay, yeah, that's
overworked.
That's good. I think that's basically right. So one thing you said is a pawn that's like not connected to any other pawn, so like no other pawns can defend it. Here technically the e pawn is not isolated, it's next to the d pawn, but notice that like if we ever try to go d4, we're just immediately getting captured. So this d pawn is a very tough time getting to e5, and so that means that basically this one is like isolated. It doesn't have any other pawns defending it. The other second very important part of the equation is whether the opponent's pieces can actually get to your pawn. Because there can be many pawns that like are undefended but are not actual weaknesses because the opponent has no way of attacking them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, so just for example. There's not a good one on this board, but this c2 pawn, no, honestly, there aren't any good examples. If we left this c2 pawn hanging, the knight could easily come and attack it. And if we left this b pawn hanging, the queen could come and easily and attack it. But sometimes you have a pawn that's left undefended. The opponent has no way of getting to it, and it's not a problem. Here, the e5 pawn is a big problem because black's pieces are like in perfect position. So this is the difference between like a potential weakness and a real weakness. Okay, so that brings us back here. e5 was a little bit too early, like the pawn gets overextended. We're not able to follow it up. So the typical idea in these positions is actually to start with this move, queen e1.
So, yeah.
It's subtle.
I've heard that.
The queen is headed to h4.
Okay.
Once the queen is on h4, let's make just some typical moves here. Now you're ready to push f5, and this is kind of like the skeleton for White's Grand Prix attack. The idea is to push f5. You don't care about whether you're winning the pawn back or not. Your idea is to play bishop h6 and then bringing this knight to g5.
Oh, so fun.
So you're basically just playing for checkmate in the Grand Prix. I mean, this is why it's like a really popular opening, because it feels like black has made perfectly normal moves, but I would actually say that black already has a very dangerous position here. Let's just make some, again, random follow-up moves just to see what our idea is. Take, I think we just ignore this one. We come here, and let's say black takes, and we'll go knight to g5. So black took 2 pawns, we ignored it. We just put our pieces on strong attacking squares. And now let's just quickly take a look at this position and try to understand what exactly we're threatening here. Now, I know you just played like 4 rapid games, so I'm not gonna have you do a lot of work here, Charlie. This is just
okay.
Because I mean, it's super late for you, and so this is not a tactical training session. That's not what this is. We're just going over your games and looking at some new ideas. But if we take a look at White's position here, our idea is essentially to eventually get our queen to h7. So White's immediate threat is to first take the bishop, and then remove the defender with rook takes f6. And once we take that knight on f6, usually it's just a checkmating attack.
You just go right in.
Yeah, so we'll try a couple more moves. Let's say black plays knight e5, just tries to defend. We'll take this one, and let's take this one. Okay, now let's pause here, because black has a choice, and we'll just see if black can find a way to defend.
I don't think they have a choice.
Well, on ef6...
Isn't it like, oh, it's not game over, but it's close.
No, game over indeed.
Oh, am I that sleepy? No. Oh, he blocked himself. If he took it, wait, yeah, but, oh yeah, because he made a wall.
That's right. So
this is why walls don't work.
ef6 is mate in 1. So let's think about king takes f6. Okay, this one I'll give to you. This one I'm pretty sure you can solve.
You just move the knight.
Well.
But where?
Yeah.
I see 2 squares are coming out at me. I'll just talk out loud.
Yeah, you take your time. You take your time.
E7.
So
yeah, but
this is a position, honestly, Charlie, you could have one day. Maybe not this exact position, but same configuration. Your queen, knights, bishop, one piece not in the game.
Oh, you just take your A1 to F1. Thank you. I'm not chess latte. I don't have those skills.
That's a good move. That's not your only good move. That's a good move.
Oh, you could take your... Wait, should you overload him and bring your other knight in to E4? Or you could, I guess, but...
So this would be a second idea as well.
My original instinct was to move the knight on G5, but I guess that's... You got to bring in more people.
Oh, you want some kind of discover check.
Yeah, but that doesn't... It isn't the fastest route, you're saying.
No. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm actually saying white has several very strong moves here. I'm
Oh,
just trying
okay.
to point out a couple of different ideas, so for the future you have a lot of options in this kind of position.
Wouldn't G7 with a knight be brutal? Because then you could take the rook too.
This one?
Yeah,
Well, let's think about that for a second. So your idea is to take the most valuable piece your knight can find, right?
that's not, well, the follow-up is the rook in the back part.
You're trying to get to the rook, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
So if you have two moves with your knight here, what else can you try to get to?
Oh, you're probably speaking king lane. Oh, it's no, it's defender. So you're saying I can go knight to e6 and then get the queen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the king can't move to e6 because of the bishop.
I mean, I'm
That
just
is
saying if your idea was to grab material with the discover check, I would be looking for the best possible thing I could take. So yeah, knight f7, knight e6, that would be good. But honestly, I would even say that the queen is like taking the queen's maybe fifth or
you win
sixth
fast.
best option. White has a
I'm
lot
gonna
of
be a
checkmates here. White has a lot of mates.
It's like overwhelmed by the choices of mates.
Yeah, exactly. Which hopefully speaks to the strength of White's attack, that you don't even have to find like one precise way to win. So let's just go through the options again. We have this knight takes e4.
Yeah.
Let's just start with that one. Where is Black's king even going?
Uh, can I give you the options
Sure.
instead?
Mm-hmm.
He can go to f5. He could sidestep to g6, and he can back that thing up to g7.
Yeah. So let's say king goes back, and we're just taking, and we have our mate. This knight
Yeah.
is
Oh, because the knight defends f6.
covering
Yeah.
f6, yeah. Then king g6, well, the knight is also defending our own knight, so
Yeah.
again, we have that mate. So let's say king f5. And now,
Oh,
okay,
what
when
to
the
do?
king starts walking towards us, I mean, it's really, just zero
I
chances.
just moved my rook to f1.
Yeah, exactly. This is the one I really wanted you to see because, like, in a blitz game, let's say you don't have a lot of time, it's fuzzy. If you have a rook that's not involved and you can get the rook in with, like, it's rarely going to be a bad idea. Very rarely will this be no good. Like, the only reason this would be bad is if you were pushing the king, let's say, to safety, but the king has no escape,
Mhm.
right? Your rook is just absolutely crushing here. Okay, I mean, black has to start giving away pieces, right? It's clearly going to lead to checkmate here in a moment, so that's completely over. So this is one way, which I like because it defends this knight. Knight d5 here is probably also good.
That's a nice square.
Yeah, but then on king g6, let's say minor drawback. If we take here, we got to part ways with our knight on g5 and maybe do a little bit more work to checkmate, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be winning for white as well. And then we have immediate rook f1.
Yep.
Which looks very, very good. Let's just say king here. We'll take this one. King takes our knight. We bring our knight in, and yeah, once the king starts advancing, there's almost always a checkmate. And I would just say if you have a chance to mate with the pawn, really try not to miss it, because it's not often you get this opportunity.
That is checkmate. Yep.
Right. So whenever the king starts approaching your king, your pawns can get involved in the attack as well. It's almost always mate. It's just so dangerous.
It's good practice.
Yeah.
Good practice. Okay.
Okay. So this is White's attacking scheme. That's kind of like let's call it a very cooperative game from Black, just letting White play out the attack. Right. I don't think all of your opponents will be as cooperative, right? They're gonna try other moves, maybe e6.
I think I saw Kimmy Lou do this kind of style in the Ultimate Sensei and wreck some people.
You say Kimmy?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember. It's possible. I mean, this Grand Prix is uh, I mean, it is dangerous. There are lots of games that go very similar to this, where black just makes kind of like normal Sicilian moves, and then all of a sudden F5 and just getting checkmated. Because again, like bishop comes to H6, knight comes to G5, and so as long as white is able to remove the key defenders, black's king is left very, very vulnerable. So this is honestly a really fun opening. A lot of players really like this one. Now it's not going to work against everyone, but
No, people know how to counter if they studied it.
but it's certainly not easy. I've definitely had lots of like Sicilian students who struggle against it. So I it's a fun one. I would say keep playing it. You know, you need lots of experience in any opening to start playing it well.
Yeah.
But this is one that like once you pick up a lot of these like attacking ideas, you can really start to win a lot of nice attacking games.
Yeah, it's only been like a week, so it hasn't been really long.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there you go. There's your plan. Now your homework is to just try to get this in your games.
Well, it wasn't that much of a like there's only a few move changes that I have to do once I hit a certain point.
Yeah, you already got this position, and you'll get something like this again, I'm sure.
Of course, yeah, I've been there a few times already in the week I've played it. So
Right. So, because this is like just typical setup from black, and you're playing your setup, and so now main plan to remember is this queen transfer.
yeah, one, moving over there, then pushing F5, and then bringing in the bishop, and then removing their key defenders.
Right. So yeah, if you get some more games, I would love to see them in this line. So yeah, okay. I assume we lost the pawn here, and then things were maybe not so good.
Oh, oh,
No, it's not good.
this is painful.
No, I mean I think you fought on for quite some time.
Well, I feel if I
And
don't,
then I got stuck.
if I just resign, I'm gonna. My knight was trapped, so I figured why.
We still had H2. A little confused.
Oh, I could have gone back.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why you're confused. Yeah, I just saw that if I go to F6, I'm done. If I go to H6, I check, but then I'm stuck. I didn't see that I could just go back to H2.
No, but Charlie, it's all good because at this point you have. I'm looking at the game. You had 2 minutes on your clock, and you spent a full minute on King H2. So clearly you spent your time here. You just didn't see Knight H2. That happens. Sometimes you're just not going to see the move. Your job is to spend your time and look. You're not always going to find the best move, but as long as you do your job, like that's the habit, you know, that we want you to build.
Yep.
So
yeah, I don't feel bad about it. It's just kind of one of those things I think in general that I don't think people my tier or me realize on how much you can actually move your knights in the middle game, and that they can go forwards, backwards, sideways. It's not just like develop and then like just try to find an outpost in the center. They can do way more than just that.
that's interesting. Yeah, you can really move them around.
I know it's obvious, but it's kind of not obvious at the same time. If that makes sense.
No, it's interesting that it wasn't obvious, you know, just yeah, because they can go all over the place. Okay, so let's go to the next one.
Yes, this one makes me hopefully look good, unless the opponent looks really bad.
I know people always worry about.
I really actually got not nervous, but I automatically tells me what numbers the computer judges you on, and I know they're not necessarily accurate, but I'm like, God, if I played this guy, I would report him. I'm gonna get reported.
Okay, so we got a King's Indian.
Oh, I'm like getting all confused. Can you flip the board? I'm like, I don't remember playing this
I think
game.
you'll have to do it on your end.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Can you start at the beginning then?
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't play this game. This looks so weird. Okay, yeah, King's Indian. This is standard way.
Okay. Actually, maybe we can start here after bishop e3.
Okay,
Um, Now I'm not like, again, I'm not a big believer in just talking about the openings all the time, but I do like
sure.
showing ideas. And
Okay,
in the King's Indian, but also the Dragon and other Sicilians, and lots of openings actually, many Grunfeld as well, this can come up. When white puts the bishop on e3, we can often annoy it with knight g4. And this is
and
a
then
very annoying move for white because they do not want to give up their dark squared bishop. So this is a move you can often play, even though you're like kind of breaking an opening rule, like moving the same piece twice. This
yeah,
dark sword bishop is such a valuable piece for you that it's worth it. So why is it a valuable piece? Because if you trade white's dark sword bishop off for your knight, that makes your
I,
bishop unopposed, right?
yes.
Your bishop gets like a monopoly on the dark squares. so so white has to deal with this one. Maybe they have to go bishop to g5 or they have to go back, but um, it's not an easy move to deal with. When they come here, you can continue chasing the bishop with h6 and even g5.
Oh,
And one day, actually, I mean, like this kingside advance, this, well, you're a King's Indian player, so you can use these kingside pawns in the future.
okay.
Um, so this is just one way, one I guess thing to think about. Like, and then from here, let's say for example, you played c5 like you did in the game,
That's
right? Like now notice white doesn't have a bishop that can challenge for this square.
okay.
So like this bishop on g3 is worse than it was here. So that's kind of what we've achieved as black.
Mhm.
And now your bishop is kind of ruling this diagonal. But okay, let's go on. So queen d2. We play c5, which typical move. And then white hits us with this bishop h6, very typical plan.
I. It's weird when at one time I heard somebody somewhere said, "Don't take the bishop. Wait till you grab it." But then I saw Jesse blitzing his pain away and all his life's problems, and he's like, "Oh, I'm pretty sure this isn't a good move." And then he took it, and then he put the knight on g4 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually don't know from my own conceptual understanding what's the best thing.
Yeah, no, it's not an easy choice. It often just depends on what's happening in the position, but that is your decision. Either you take or you leave it. I would say it. There's not a ton of rules for this. It's just
Okay.
often just depends on what's going on. So the danger of taking it, of course, is that you let white's queen in, right? The
Yeah.
advantage is that you're pulling white's queen away from the rest of the board.
Yeah.
So in this case, I actually like your choice because I don't quite see white's attack here. White's attacking with one queen.
Yeah.
So that means if you can create counterplay on the queen side, for example, white doesn't have a queen now that can really fight on that side of the board. So I would say there's often not necessarily a right or wrong choice. It's just that
Okay.
whatever choice you make, you have to follow up on it. So if you take, your idea should generally be because you're trying to create counterplay on the other side of the board. If you just try to fight white on the king side, that can sometimes be a losing battle because white is going to castle queenside in these kinds of positions and then play like h4, and basically you're the one with the king here on the king side, right? So if you try to start fighting on the king side and open things up, your king might be the one that's getting checkmated. So you got to be
Yeah.
kind of very careful before doing too much.
So do you think that was a bad play then going to g4 to
Right. So with knight g4,
okay.
it's like you're kind of like pushing white's queen away. I don't think it's bad. It's just your follow up was to put the knight here, which I think
Yes.
is not a great choice, mainly because you kind of run short on squares. White just immediately kicks you with f4, and then you have to go back. And f4 is
Oh
a move
yeah.
that white definitely just wanted to make anyway. So basically, the knight is just kind of bouncing around without a good square here, and then white plays h3, and now you're just back to where you started. but white has been given like kind of a couple of free moves here.
Yeah, they got more room.
Right. So, and these are moves that white would probably want to play anyway. Okay, now white, I think, commits a little bit too quickly with e5, but we'll get into that. So so in this position, for example, you could definitely consider something like queen a5. Not saying this is a necessarily great move, but it's a consideration, like you're threatening to take here, for example. And you might even have ideas of like a Benko Gambit style b5.
Just simply pinning the knight to the king and then taking the free pawn.
Yeah, that would be one possible way to play the position.
It's better than when
Yeah, I think it's all right. I want to see how the game progressed. So yeah, I think white kind of commits too quickly here with e5. Now you win the e5 pawn. Like your opponent won this pawn last game because you pushed it too early. Now white does the same thing and you take it. So knight f3, you trade. e6. So why did you play e6 here?
I did it to open up my f file with a rook.
Oh, to open the f file. So if white had taken here?
I would take with my pawn.
Oh, take with pawn.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I guess I was wrong.
No, I like e6. I just want to know your justification.
Oh yeah, which is good. Yeah.
There's actually, I mean, definitely different ways to follow up here.
I was also thinking, since I was ahead, and that if I could grab the queen, the king has to grab, and then he can't castle.
So
I don't know if I.
Yeah, would you want to throw in queen takes queen?
I probably would have. Yeah.
Okay, well.
But I didn't remember what was real and what wasn't.
Oh, on the game, white played d6.
Oh, that's why. I'm imagining. This is like what was my thought process too.
Yeah. But the thought process is what we're after, because that's just interesting to hear. Because I like e6 because you're up a pawn and you're castled. White is not castled. Mm-hmm. So opening up the position is gonna make things really difficult for white's king. And if white takes, you get to trade queens, which is nice for you because you're up a pawn. Then after king takes, I would say you actually have a choice here. I mean, fe certainly makes sense because you can maybe create some play here. Maybe knight can get out of the way. But it does block your bishop in. So honestly, my gut feeling would be to just take with the bishop and use your rooks in the center. Because then all of your pieces are happy. And this pawn is going to be a weakness for a long time. This one's not going anywhere. Both of these pawns are very isolated, and your pieces will always have a way to put pressure on them. But white goes d6, so it doesn't want the endgame. You played a6. Was that to stop knight b5?
Yeah, I couldn't think what to do again. So I was like, let me just stop what they could do.
Mm-hmm. Well, in terms of not knowing what to do, what do you mean by that exactly?
I couldn't like devise a plan on how to checkmate or to like just necessarily take a piece. Like my knight couldn't go to g4 or e4. I couldn't figure out how to develop my bishop further. So,
well, what about just super simple bishop d7?
I think I was planning that if he pushed again, I was gonna take with the bishop. Oh, I could have probably just took on my queen and then forced him to trade.
Or you're saying
I think what happens sometimes is like things that I agree to in my head that make sense this play. A few plays down the line, I forget that I was willing to trade queens, and now I'm like hoarding my material. I'm like, I don't want to give away my queen.
That's funny.
It's
I mean, you can make this one if you want. I think it's perfectly fine. I don't know. I feel like you kind of overthought the bishop here a little bit. For me, if your rooks are not connected, you always have something to do. Just connect the rooks. So if you don't see a way to like checkmate or whatever, that's fine. We have to keep our can't really get a strong attack without like most of our pieces being developed, if not all of our pieces. So if you still have pieces in the corner that haven't moved yet, you always have
Yeah.
something actually very simple to do. Just get your pieces out. Even if it's not in the best possible way, like if you play bishop d7 here, maybe b6 is slightly better to put the bishop on the long diagonal. This is still going to be better, in my opinion, than a6, which is just like, okay, it stops the move, but it doesn't help your development. You know, you still need to develop your pieces. So for me, it's just not the
The reason,
best use of time here.
yeah, the reason why I didn't do b6 is because then I thought the knight could still go to b5. So you're saying the best move is simply bishop to d7.
Yeah, you know, honestly, I don't even think this is that much of a threat. We can look at this one a little bit. Let's say we just go here. And okay, white attacks our rook. We just move it. There's honestly not that much the knight can really do to us.
So technically, he helped us develop.
Yeah, I mean, right. Because your position's pretty solid. You don't have a lot of weaknesses, you know, like your pawns are all connected and defending each other. This is your one undefended pawn on a7, right? So this is like, this is the big weakness that white can target. But of course, we're not concerned about this one when we, you know, our pieces are also getting into the game. So yeah,
Good point.
basically, I would say, I don't know, maybe we were thinking a little bit. Sounded like you were looking for some kind of like specific idea, but honestly, all we need to do here is just get our pieces into the game, and everything else will. Like once you play this one and this one, for example, you can try to win the d pawn. Once you put your bishop on this diagonal, you can put a lot of pressure here. It's only when your pieces are out that the ideas will, you know, that the tactics will start showing up.
Yeah, I didn't even think the zigzag, the d7 to the c6. I didn't think of that like simply zigzag move.
Yeah, two ways to get here. You can go here, or they both take two moves, whether you want to play the fianchetto or not. You know, I chose this one actually just to give you the moral option that if white goes knight b5, you can then take it. Although I would say you don't even have to.
I want to take bishop, yeah.
But you could absolutely take it because you're up a pawn, and let's say you're trying to win this one. Maybe we go knight d5 here, and like we go after this pawn, or queen b6, rook d8, and so this pawn is very far advanced, but that also means that it's very close to your pieces, so it's very easy for you to just pile up on it and remove it from the board forcefully. So
I generally try not to take knight.
Yeah. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, I just said mentally I try not to take knights with bishops. But I guess there's always a time when you should.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. I would say let's say, rule of thumb is you don't want to trade bishop for knight unless you're getting something along with it. So for example, you're weakening your opponent's pawns, you're getting an extra pawn. In this case, what are we getting out of it? We're simplifying the position, and we're also removing one of the defenders from white's d pawn. So this is kind of why I'm like absolutely fine with it. Another way to think about it, Charlie, I don't want to throw like just tons and tons of stuff at you, but when we think about exchanges, it's not just about are we exchanging a good piece versus a bad piece. It's mainly about what are going to be the pieces left on the board. So, you know, if I tell you that you're going to be left with a good knight versus bad bishop and extra pawn, then that's good. So if you trade off a bishop for a knight to make that happen, that's still a good outcome. So it's really about the outcome, like what's being left on the board. That's why you'll see strong players sometimes trade a knight for what seems to be a very bad bishop, because they're more interested in the endgame and with the pieces that are going to be left on the board. They know that's going to be advantageous for them. So, yeah, in many cases, you know, you have a nice attack, but you also see that if you trade queens, you get a very nice endgame. It's okay, you wanted your queen for the attack, but now you can get just like an endgame that you know you'll just win smoothly. So it absolutely makes sense. It can make sense to trade queens and simplify. So yeah, no, just interesting moment here. So white goes knight e4. We take this one. We get the check. Nice. King d1, and now the queen has come in.
I think he moved to a square that I wanted to. I think this was a tactic in my mind, but he didn't move to where I wanted to go. Yeah.
What do you mean with the king, or what?
Yeah, I want him to go to a white square, so I could check him with the pawn grab and get the rook.
Oh, you wanted this one and this one, right?
Yeah, and I figured we're low enough rating that it could happen.
So you had to settle with just grabbing a pawn in the center, activating your queen, leaving your opponent without castling rights. I
Yes.
mean, it sounds pretty good too. Yeah. You didn't win the rook, but it's still good.
Yeah, but I'm realizing by watching this that this all stemmed from my opponent making a mistake, not necessarily me. Like, I guess I played like good enough, but it really is like who makes the wrong calculation that makes the play that backfires, and then if the other person just plays sound, they win it. They can win it all the way to the end.
You're not you're not totally far off. um, you are actually kind of stumbling upon like a kind of a deeper strategy here. Some players
Okay.
they do play with just they're just going to take away their opponent's main idea and let the opponent kind of hang themselves.
Okay.
And that's a little bit what happened here because probably White did want to put the knight on b5. You stop this square,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, I guess I'll go knight e4 then." And then that turned out to be a mistake tactically. So it does
Yeah.
happen when you kind of just play patient and you just prevent your opponent's ideas. You know, another move is like King G7, for example, just to take away this
Yeah.
square, not to let White's queen in anytime soon. That could be a move you make as well. This can lead to the player making a mistake, but I wouldn't try to rely on this strategy because this is something that you should do when you have nothing to improve about your own position.
No, you're 100% correct. Obviously, you know chess, but I also understand the reasoning behind it. Like, what am I saying? I didn't know what to do. I have my rooks aren't touching, so that means clearly I'm not fully developed. I should move my bishop to the easiest and fastest square to develop them, which is d7.
Yeah.
In my, yeah.
But in terms of like the opponent making a mistake, right? That's not always going to be something that like you provoke them to do or you induce them. But that's part of chess, and whoever plays more solid, more accurately is generally uh, gonna do better. So that's why we're looking for the best possible move that isn't an outright blunder. But now we're doing great. We're on the attack. We won another pawn. Queen is active. White's king is loose. I like rook d8, just improving the rook, putting pressure.
Trying to get this queen.
Queen e5, and yeah, I mean, normally I would say like, it's not good to just play with only two pieces. Again, you should be trying to get your other pieces out, but chess is a concrete game, and this is just crushing. So I absolutely can't. Yeah. I don't blame you for that at all.
Okay.
So no, this is totally fine. And yeah, you won the game without ever moving two pieces. So I don't know if that's an achievement or.
It's more pathetic, but I couldn't tell if I got to play this endgame right. Like, was I getting closer to checkmating, and that's why he quit? Obviously, but like, I'm trying to think what the follow-up moves would be. It aggravated me because I wanted to checkmate.
Well, I think they were just bummed about their rooks hanging.
I forked the rooks, but I was obviously thinking though, would it have been wrong in this situation to take one of the rooks and was a checkmate right there?
It depends. Like, so let's say, for example, if White puts the king here and you take the rook instead of going for this bishop move, which would basically kill the king, then I would say yeah, that's bad to take the rook because you have like pretty much mate in one, mate in two, or whatever, right? Like that's just GG. Yeah. But if White goes king c2 here and we don't have any obvious checks, like everything is covered, then I would say no, just take the rook. Just be easy. You take the rook and they resign. That's it. Okay. You don't have to calculate anything here, right? So it kind of just depends. Like if you have an easy checkmate, then of course checkmate. But if there's nothing obvious, then take the rook. That's just huge material.
I'm trying to reason for myself and decide. I hate it because I'm like, if he went to king a4, what would I do? Would I calculate it and see that I could go d7, or would I be like, and just grab a rook? Like I can't figure out what I would do.
I don't know. You could grab a rook. I don't really see anything wrong with that. You're just grabbing material, and then you have more pieces, and then
I would have won probably anyways.
Likely to win.
I think I want to be able to figure out. It doesn't matter if I can grab a piece. If there's a faster checkmate, I should have been able to contemplate that move and realize it was the best, not just because I got a rook at it.
Yeah, correct. Like in general, if you have time, you're trying to find the best possible move, and especially when you're on the attack, we do try to just finish things off cleanly. But I don't know. I believe in the practical aspect as well, because I just think chess is a practical game, especially in rapid chess when you're down on time. In this game, okay, you didn't have to use a whole lot of time, so you still had plenty of time here. But when you're low on time, it's really important to be practical because, if you have 30 seconds on your clock and then you have to find some checkmate, like you might miscalculate it, you might not see it in time. A lot of things can go wrong. But if you're just up a rook in some endgame, you can easily finish that off with 30 seconds on your clock. Or especially if you have increment, you can just rely on the increment and it's not that tricky.
Yeah. I think the next game has tons of learning because it's the first time I ever played against the opening that I went against.
Yeah,
when I played my
let's look at this one.
Nargave.
Yeah, let's take a look. Let me put it in.
Oh, it was really fun because there was so much thinking from both of us, and I got to play the kid again. But it confused me. I'd never seen this F3 stuff.
Yeah. Basically, it's kind of like minor move order thing. Normally, white plays here first, and then e4. This is what you're used to seeing.
Yeah.
And then some players will play f3 in this position. This is kind of the more common way. I don't know if you've seen this one before.
Yeah, I have, but just seeing it first made me feel awkward and insecure about myself.
Wow. So, yeah, some players do it here, and this actually has nothing to do with the King's Indian. This has more to do with the Grunfeld, because if you played the Grunfeld here, then white would play e4, and the Grunfeld players do not have a knight on c3 that they're used to taking. And so because of this, their knight has to go back, and then white can develop the knight to c3 without worrying about exchanging. Whereas in like the normal Grunfeld, I'll just quickly show you here. When this happens and white goes e4, black is always taking this knight on c3, making this exchange in order to leave white with this kind of weak pawn on c3.
Yes.
But for a King's Indian player like you, it doesn't matter because you're just putting your bishop on g7, castling, you're not worrying about the d5 square. Your setup is still exactly the same. And then it eventually just immediately transposes back into something that I think you've seen before.
Yep. I still get the worries though. Every time I play the kid, the e4 pawn always scares me because it makes me nervous about my knight and all that stuff.
Oh, because of e5.
Yep. Every time. Because I take and then he takes, he's threatening my knight still.
Right. Yeah, I hope we can get you out of this fear. Because this pawn is often like really, really weak, really overextended.
So it's not that big of a deal?
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, a lot of times we welcome this move. Honestly, on e5, I'm not even sure I would go for the endgame. I think I would play knight d7, keep the queens on the board, and then try to put maximum pressure on white's position. There's a very famous Fischer game. I just quickly want to show you a couple of moves, because he really... this is like the ultimate disrespect. So here after e4, you normally play d6, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Fischer just castles, which you can absolutely do. This is completely fine. And his opponent ends up going e5, and this just looks like, wow, I mean, how could you allow this, right? But it's actually a lot of space that white is taking, and as they say, with great space comes great responsibility. And all these pawn moves are going to be challenged by your own pawns. And so when white, let's say, supports the pawn, you go d6 and c5 here, and you're just trying to rip open the diagonal. So here's how that game continued. White played knight f3, black played c5, and white took. Taking advantage of this pin, actually, black's queen on d8 is hanging.
Frodo.
Oh, hey, buddy.
Frodo is causing a ruckus.
I like Frodo. So white takes this pawn, and like black can't recapture. His idea is just to continue developing with knight to c6. In fact, he's even willing to give up a pawn.
Because he's so much more developed than white, right?
Exactly. White has spent a lot of pawn moves, a lot of moves moving their pawns, and you're already developed. And if white continues to, let's say, trade here, your second knight comes out, you get the e file, and this is just fantastic counterplay against white's king. Your pieces are super active, and they have like tons of diagonals to work with and files. So Fischer ends up winning this game in crushing fashion. I'm sure it's covered somewhere on YouTube. I'll find the link for you or something and send that to you so you can look at it.
Cool. So now I'm not worried too much about e5 anymore.
Yeah, e5 is almost never a concern because it just takes white so much
that
time.
backwards knight move makes me think I did something wrong. It makes me think like I lost.
Right.
Like, because I'm like farther away from the miserable king instead of like it's fun. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, but in fact, it's just a counter punching idea. You're hoping that white overextends themselves, because now these pawns can never move backwards, and you're just guaranteeing that your bishop will always have an active life when you go d6. C5.
Okay.
Yeah, let me get the game for everyone in case others are curious. This is the game Fischer Letelier. It's actually a very famous game because it ends in beautiful queen sacrifice. But yeah, absolutely fantastic model game for the King's Indian. It's in the chat there for everyone, and I'll send it to you too, Charlie.
Sure, I'll probably watch the VOD just to see if Scotty's there trolling me or Chess Latte is there, my buddy.
Yeah, they might have.
Yeah, with a 9-year-old. It's okay, it's cool.
Might have said some stuff.
It's fun.
Cool. Okay, so let's get back to your game. So basically this is just a different move order, and we're still getting a normal King's Indian. C5 here, totally reasonable. D5. And so yeah, I've seen this from you, Charlie, I think a couple times now. And yeah, I gotta share this idea with you. So it seems like you play this structure a lot in your King's Indian games with C5.
Yeah. Yes.
So this one is perfectly fine. I mean, we call it like a Benoni structure, and I think it's a very fun way to play. But you gotta go e6 very, very quickly in these positions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think in at least one of your other games, maybe two, you tend to develop this knight to d7 very quickly, but I would say this is actually not great because now you can't go e6. Now when you go e6, white takes it, and your d-pawn is hanging.
That's true.
So that's the big deal here. So when we're giving up the space with d5, we want to challenge just as quickly as possible.
Oh, and then my queen's still there to make it so I defend the d6.
So this one's still covered, exactly. And if white takes here, in fact, you can consider taking with the bishop. I think that's quite reasonable. You can also consider taking with the pawn and trying to put that pawn on e5 and getting full grip over the d4 square. Let's just say we go bishop takes for now, and then your knight can be developed much more actively to c6. So the knight on d7 is actually not as flexible as it might seem.
Yeah,
a lot of times based on the structure, the knight might be wanting to develop more actively.
Yes, that's good. Nice.
So this is maybe the one major opening adjustment, because you asked me about like the King's Indian.
Yeah.
In terms of like the middle games and stuff and the transition. So this is the one major adjustment I think you should really remember, is that whenever you kind of play for the c5 break, you want to just very quickly follow up with e6. And then, for example, white will continue to make, let's say, normal moves. And your other moves that you made, I think, are reasonable. Like b6 is an idea to develop the bishop to a6. Another reason why the knight on b8 is useful, you can play this bishop a6 idea and trade off your light squared bishop, which is kind of a problem piece in this position. In fact, I think this is a pretty underrated plan for black. And why do we want to trade off our bishop? Because we're behind in space. We don't have a lot of room for all of our pieces. So if we can trade a pair of bishops, it gives everything else a chance to breathe, and now your pieces aren't fighting for the same squares.
Is that what I don't remember what I did. Is this what I did, or is this?
Oh no, this is not. Let me show you what happened. In the game we play knight d7, a6, a4. So white shuts us down. And then
And he wants to try to
like,
rook.
what do we
Yeah.
do with this bishop, right? Like, we got to go b6 and bishop b7. But what's the bishop on b7 doing?
I was thinking that he was trying to do tricks and make it that he could get my rook sliding down the file and getting it with my bishop blocking my queen, so he would get a free rook.
Oh, yes, yes. That's the point of why it's a4. Yeah, exactly. That you can't go b5 because ab.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right.
So
But the bishop on
that's why
b7 here is just very passive,
I have no,
because it's just
no, I
biting
know.
on all of white's pawns, and this is just hard granite. It would already be bad if one of white's pawns was like gone. Like if you're only fighting against one pawn, that's already not great. Two pawns, it's like the bishop is just dead, basically dead. So
Yep.
so that's the problem. That's why we need e6. That's why it's so important to just create some space for our pieces.
Yeah.
Okay, the other idea I just quickly want to mention, let's say you get some position like this where you have your d6, c5, you have your bishop on this diagonal. One idea I feel like I haven't seen from you is this move knight back to d7.
Probably never.
Yeah, hold on. There was one game I saw. I just want to put it in because this is a really useful idea that can help you in a lot of middle games. Just transferring, and we talked about knight transfer. So transferring this knight to a better square.
Is that so you can get the outpost on e5, but then the pawn pushes up? What's the purpose? To defend c5? No.
Yeah, so the idea is to use the e5 square. And if white pushes f4, then they're going to be weakening their e4 pawn. So this move doesn't come for free for white.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, there's one more game I want to show you, but let's go through this game first. We'll just kind of see what happened here. So we end up really behind in space. We play e6. That's good. That's very good. We take here. c4. I like that a lot. And knight comes in. We end up losing this pawn.
I ended up doing a cool tactic somewhere around here. I was trying to get his queen, but he saw it, and then I think I messed up.
Oh.
But you'll see it eventually. I saw that now if he takes it back, I get his queen. But I think I messed up. I think I should take his bishop first.
Right, because he took your bishop. You took his pawn. And then he just retreats.
Yeah. If I took his bishop, would that tactic still be on the board, though?
Well, it gives white one move to try to defend against it.
Yeah.
So, for example, white could try to unpin. And, but then you still have, so maybe white has to go back here to keep the pawn defended.
Okay.
Yeah. But would you say you were kind of tunnel visioning on this one?
No, I saw. I don't think it was tunnel vision. Maybe it wasn't like taking the time to fully evaluate it. Maybe I got excited. I'm not sure.
Okay. Because sometimes it can happen like we see an idea that we have, but then we just kind of ignore the opponent's moves. It's like you're playing rook c8, rook e8, now you have this threat, white takes on g7, whatever, let's play our idea. Knight takes c4.
If I took the bishop, would that have made it that I turned the tide and Gandalf came and I possibly could have won the battle?
Well, you stay in the game much better, of course, because you're only down one pawn, and that's the minimal amount you could be down, right? So you still have enough pieces that you can absolutely turn things around if your opponent hangs some tactic. Like if they forget about this pawn, or if they allow some knight fork. Actually, queen b1 allows knight b3, for example. So that's just one example how your opponent can let you back into the game, right? So you certainly have your chances here. After this one, then you're down a full piece, and that's a lot harder to cope with. So one pawn, active pieces can compensate for very easily. A full piece, that requires a lot more.
So I'll just assume that I was in tunnel vision and I figured he didn't see it. Because he told me after actually he didn't see it, I think. Or was that a different play? He told me something. He blundered something. I don't even remember what it was. But
Oh, I don't know. I think Morphe was in chat. Maybe they can clarify. That's okay. Again, the important thing is that you spent your time,
yeah.
which you clearly did, just from the timestamp. So that's the thing, just to keep up. If you keep doing that, you'll get lots of good games. I mean, your opponent here is like, yeah, 350 points higher rated than you. So keep doing that. You get lots of good games. Definitely not going to win all your games, but it's the practice and experience that improves us. Oh, Morphe's saying they blundered a knight somewhere in the end game.
Yeah, but not as bad as what I did with 30 seconds left.
Oh, nice.
Right there.
Well, it's all good. I mean, yeah, when you're down on time, the blunders will happen. So I don't really worry about those too much.
I think I beat him before too with time. Back when I was like 900, 1,000, something like that. I think I beat him on time. Yeah.
Okay, we take those. So Charlie, okay, I wanted to show you one game I remember looking at from last time that you played.
Sure. Sure.
Caitlin.
She always beats me if it's daily. We play daily all the time.
That's right.
Everybody does, and everybody gets free practice against me. Seth, he goes to town. He spends hours looking for moves.
Wow.
I just move. Like, I don't go to this extra tabs, and I just try to just move. I don't know. I try to train my impulses a lot, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what can I learn? What kind of timestamp is this?
So this, I think this was a rapid game.
Oh, please tell me I won.
I don't know. Actually, I don't even care. I just wanted to talk about the middle game.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
So, yeah, here we kind of, again, we could have fallen into a similar situation as the game we just looked at. So, for example, had white not traded here and just, let's say, backed up, your bishop would have a very hard time doing anything against this pawn chain. So it's kind of like very, very, pretty much the same thing. And then if white goes e4 here, then your bishop really gets shut down.
Yes.
So from our point of view, when we go c5 here, it's actually kind of tough because, like, if white doesn't commit to d5, we don't really have a lot of moves. Then when we go b6, bishop b7, then white commits to d5 and our bishop doesn't want to be there. So this is another case where I actually think, like, it would have been better to play c5 without knight d7.
Yes.
So that if white doesn't commit and doesn't do anything, your pieces can still come out. So you're not getting in your own way with knight d7.
So in general, I'm trying to develop minor pieces sometimes when I can actually already do the pawn push, whatever it's called.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're totally in position to play c5 here. You don't need the knight on d7. And the knight on d7 can block your bishop, so there can be some drawbacks to that one. That makes it harder for you to then play the middle game. Because, yeah, a lot of times we can develop a lot more actively. Knight c6, bishop g4, and, like, putting lots of pressure on the d-pawn, for example. And then you won't feel as cramped. So the game continues in an interesting way. So so white takes on f6. I think that's probably not the best move, because then white is giving up a piece and letting you trade off, and all of a sudden it's so much easier for you to develop because white traded a piece. So you go bishop g4, that's good. Although actually here again would have been totally reasonable as well to go e6, just to again just creating some room for your pieces. Basically, if you can play this move and you don't lose a pawn, it's probably fine.
Do it.
But bishop g4 I think is also okay. Then we take here. And then, yeah, this is the moment where, again, knight d7, knight e5 becomes a very useful maneuver for you, because you open up your bishop and then your knight attacks a lot of things on e5.
Mm-hmm.
So this is maybe the second idea I want you to take away from this one. First one, try to play e6 early on. Second,
Yep.
when you have a chance to remaneuver your knight, or sometimes this one can go to c5, this is a nice maneuver to do as well.
That's very useful. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a nice out. Is it considered an outpost if it feels like it's in your own backyard?
No, definitely not, because white can still chase this one. But if this f pawn was gone, then yeah, that would be an outpost.
Okay. Still a nice fork.
Yeah. And then this bishop is just a fantastic piece. Let's talk a little bit about what your plan would be. So here it might be a little bit hard to get e6 because this bishop is pointing at this one and pawns might be a little bit weak. But second plan, apart from e6, is to do the other pawn break, which I think you probably have seen, a6 and b5.
I've probably seen it, but it's not as much as seeing people do C and E C file and E file ones are coming to my head more.
Oh, I see. Okay, so yeah, let me have you take away these two main plans in the position. They're both pawn breaks, so that's how you remember them. You have your e6 pawn break and your b5 pawn break. Both are designed to open up your rooks and the rest of your pieces. So the rook goes to the b file, you play b5, you try to attack the b2 pawn. The rook also kind of connects with your bishop, so it's very well coordinated.
Oh.
And I mean, if you notice, this bishop, I mean, the King's Indian is considered, like a kingside attacking opening, right? But the bishop is open on this diagonal. So when the bishop is open, you're actually pointed at the queen side. So it makes sense for you to play on the queen side as well with a6, b5. Very, very common idea in these positions.
Okay. That makes sense.
Okay, Charlie, let's finish up there. I think that's probably good.
There's a lot to learn from these. Thank you. I really appreciate the time. Just so you know, I probably already have like almost 40,000 channel points already.
Nice.
Since and I plan in a couple of weeks or a month or so to get a drum exchange with Pruis. So I'm sorry, guys, you're stuck with me.
No, you're a model student. Leveraging what you need to get lessons. You're always super active and positive in the chat, which I really appreciate, honestly do.
Cool.
And yeah, you earned it. I mean, that's what the channel points are there for now, to give you guys something to work for. Obviously, I hope others learned from our lesson as well. And yeah, we want to see you guys gain tons of points. So
yeah, it's cool to
it's kind of a win-win.
starting where I started, so many of us have improved, and it's nice that the community is always like we're not really competing with each other. We're actually like really generally want all of us to get better together, which is actually a really cool thing to see. We have really such a great community here in the dojo.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, a few of you just started playing literally last year, which is remarkable. Because you basically just started from zero.
Yeah, I started at 800.
So
yeah, it's a lot of people saying like they see us play, like no matter whoever it is in our scrub league, noob league thing, and when they see it, sometimes they can't believe not saying we play well, but that it doesn't look so atrocious as they expect. I think that's just because there's so many resources available that a 1200 of today is probably a different strength of the 1200 of 10 years ago.
Right.
So at least that's my thought. At least that's what I tell myself.
Yeah, no, there definitely is a lot of resources. I mean, there's some different factors at play. There's like rating inflation and all this stuff, but there are definitely more resources. Yeah. What's that?
On Lead Chess, I'm in the mid 1800s, so that's rating inflation. I know it's not real.
That's funny.
Don't worry. I try not to play. I only play on that account if for some reason I feel tilted by chess.com. Then I go to that, and just so I feel like I'm not all getting messed up all on one account. It's just a mental thing. But I know in the end, the rating's arbitrary because if you're learning, you're probably going to make mistakes because you're learning something new. So it doesn't necessarily make sense if you judge yourself strictly by your rating points.
Right. No, absolutely. It takes time. It takes months and months and years of practice, and slowly you work up, and um,
Yeah, my
essentially,
lifetime goal is to
eventually
become,
you wake up a stronger player.
yeah, eventually.
Hey, you got an anonymous
Uh,
gifter. Nice.
Anonymous is my favorite types of gifters. No offense to anybody that gifts with their name, but anonymous is the cool way to go.
Nice.
All the cool kids do it.
Sweet.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks for all my training partners in the dojo. Chess Latte, Steve, Scotty the most. He spends the most time with me, and he's a funny guy. I really appreciate it. Thanks to the senseis for being there for us. It's really weird how, like, when I'm old and I think of coronavirus and the pandemic, I'm literally gonna think of Chess Dojo and how, like, the world just found each other at the same time. Like, I'm gonna ignore the fact that I gained 35 pounds this year as a teacher on Zoom, and I'm gonna focus more about my chess development and Chess Dojo.
Nice, man. Well, yeah, it's been great having you, and everyone support us. It's been really awesome. Yeah. So
All
thank
right,
you
cool
guys.
beans.
All right, that's gonna wrap it up for this stream. I'll be signing off and rating someone. But I will be streaming back later today at some point. Gonna do some more speedrunning. So stay tuned for that. That'll probably be towards the evening. But yeah, hopefully the VOD is available. If not, I've been having some sound issues with the VOD, but if there are sound issues, I should be able. I usually record my streams now, so I should be able to upload it for those that missed it. And yeah, thanks again, Charlie, for being a good sport.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it a lot, and hopefully it helped other people in the dojo as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, who are we rating? Oh, let's rate hashtag chess. Feel like haven't rated them in a while. They're doing some under 1200 training. That's cool.
The other Jesse and Rebecca.
The other Jesse, that's right.
It's funny, and they were talking about how they learned how to play chess by watching Jesse Cry DVDs.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jesse goes way back. All right, guys, tell them we said hi. Have a good one. Enjoy hashtag chess, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.
See you guys and girls.
All right, cool. We are